A discussion that comes up often when it comes to drum technique is whether you should play heel up or heel down. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the benefits of each. It's not a right or wrong, so to speak. It has more to do with the desired result that you want. And let's look at a couple different genres of music as examples for this. So for hard rock and metal, modern pop music, right? A lot of these forms of music use a very, very consistent bass drum sound, and it's best if the transient is really consistent all the time. So those genres of music don't like a lot of dynamics in the bass drum. In fact, sometimes people go in and sample replace bass drum so they can get this very consistent, same exact drum hit every time. This is important for those genres of music, but this is not true with all forms of music. So for instance, jazz and a lot of early funk music, like James Brown and a lot of stuff coming out of New Orleans, like the Meters and stuff like that, they tended to use more open sounding bass drums. And that resulted in the ability to play with a lot more dynamics and accent certain beats and not accent other beats. And this is a part of that music where it's not so much a part of the modern rock and pop idiom, right? Okay, so heel down gives us more control of playing with dynamics. So if we're playing a lot of jazz and early funk and we're tuning our bass drum somewhat open and to a higher pitch, we have a lot of control over a wide dynamic range. We could really punctuate the bass drum, and this is what you hear in jazz sometimes, with them punctuating the bass drum at key moments, right? But in rock music, using heel up is going to give us a lot more of a consistent transient and hit every time. So we could be very, very consistent with our hits. So that's important for that genre. And I will switch between these techniques depending on what kind of session I'm on and also the tuning of the drums. I find that if drums are tuned for modern rock music, they don't resonate, they don't ring a lot, and it's a lot harder to play them with dynamics. And in fact, if you do play them with dynamics, they tend to sound kind of bad because they're tuned to be hit pretty hard and consistently, whereas open drums, there's a lot more range of colors that you can have and conjure out of the drum. Now, this doesn't mean that modern rock music and stuff is bad. It's just a different mindset. So if I'm on a gig and the kid is tuned really dead, then I'm going to play a lot more heel up just to kind of maintain my dynamics. Ideally, I could think about it a little bit before the session, and I can match the bass drum tuning and the bass drum and the technique to the song, and that way I can just get a better performance and get something that's going to fit better in a mix. So for instance, if I'm playing heel down, I'm trying to get a really consistent 4-on-the-floor bass drum for pop music, then playing heel down is going to be just potentially be a little bit inconsistent unless you've really worked on it to be super consistent. But heel up in that situation is going to be, you're going to push a lot more force into that bass drum on a consistent basis, and so it's going to resonate a lot more, right? It's much better to consider this before you record than trying to fix it after the fact. Consider the drummers that you're using for each type of scenarios. If you're playing some early James Brown, using a drummer that's used to playing modern contemporary rock or pop country or pop music, is probably going to be a little too heavy-handed on their bass drum and not used to playing with a little more of that open bass drum sound. And of course, the opposite is true too. If you're really looking for that solid, just kick and snare, very consistent sound, a jazz drummer is probably not your right drummer for that type of gig. So it's all about pairing. I'm going to show you some examples now. I'm just going to switch the camera angle to show you the bass drum, and I'm going to show you both techniques and some examples of me playing with them. If you're digging this video, please like my channel and subscribe and leave comments. I'd love to hear your conversations about the strengths and weaknesses of each. And you can check out my webpage at anatomyoftone.com. Heel down, heel up. So here's a groove with me playing heel down, and you're going to hear some fluctuations in the dynamics. If I'm playing jazz, I'm also going to use my foot a lot. Here's a rock setting where I might want to have very consistent bass drum patterns.